Hello everyone. I'm delighted to start a new series which is the Analyst series. So we are going to discuss with the analysts what is their view on certain topics. And I'm delighted for the first one we have Stéphane Téral from LightCounting. Now I know Stéphane for a very long time. In fact, I remember hearing him for the first time in 2010 at a SON conference, and we used to always bump into each other at optimization conference or all kinds of things. So I'm going to let Stéphane introduce himself and tell something about him and his company LightCounting. Stéphane?
Thank you, Zahid, for having me here. It's a pleasure to be with you as always and talking with you. Great pleasure. So I'm Stéphane Téral, Chief Analyst at LightCounting Market Research. We are a market research boutique that has been in business for almost 2 decades, and we have people spread out all over the world. And we are mostly known for our strong coverage in optical, but we have brought wireless, and I'm here to talk about 5G and anything related to wireless.
Okay. So in the last many years, we have seen 5G take off, right? In some countries, you have the coverage-based 5G, generally based on the dynamic spectrum sharing. In some countries, you have the capacity-based 5G, so new spectrum, a lot of C-band spectrum giving very high data rates. And there were a lot of use cases that were initially touted as like the 5G killer use cases, but none of them have really materialized. So my question to you is, where do you see 5G going in the next year and in the next couple of years? So what do you think? Where is 5G going?
I see the 5G market going, well, there is only way up. Yeah, we still have a long way to go. I mean, we are at the beginning. It's off to a great start because it's going faster than what we saw 10 years ago with LTE. And as a matter of fact, we have covered the planet with LTE. We have 791 networks all over the world. When I talk about networks, it's a network. Let's think about it this way. It's not the service provider or the mobile operator. The mobile operator can be a large group. Think about Orange, Vodafone, Telefonica. So they operate networks in different parts of the world, and therefore they have many networks. So this is important to know what's counted actually in these 791 LTE networks. I'm very picky about LTE because LTE, if you really go back to the IMT 2000 set of definitions by the ITU, you'll see that LTE long-term evolution is actually 3G in the 3G category. Let's say it's between 3.5 and 3.9G. In order to fall into the 4G league or category, you need to tweak your LTE networks. And that is at carrier aggregation, go with a higher order modulation. I mean, with that, you fall into what is known as LTE advanced, and you are in 4G. Remember, I said 791 LTE networks. We are at 336 LTE advanced networks. This is, sounds good. However, it's kind of disappointing because get this, we have, at this point, we are, so we finished actually December, we finished 2021 with 200 5G networks, 236 LTE advanced, 4G through 4G networks. Whoa, I said we are off to a great start, and this is what I mean. It's going way faster. So does it mean some of these LTE folks are actually bypassing the 4G stage, leapfrogging the 4G stage? That's interesting, isn't it? We don't know. We haven't checked yet. We'll do. Then going back to those 5G networks, 200 5G networks, 180 are NSA, non-standalone networks, meaning they are actually anchored in LTE. So they have a parachute. The parachute is LTE. I mean, logically, it better be LTE advanced, 4G. And I remember what I said, haha, some folks may actually be using just LTE. Will they move to standalone? So 180 non-standalone networks, 20 standalone networks, this is the real 5G. So we still have a long way to go, but looking great, very exciting to be in this 5G world.
So now then my next question is, what do you think about dedicated 5G core and 5G standalone? And how do you think is it important for 5G to succeed?
5G core is a very critical part. It's the pillar of what 5G is all about. You know, it's not only about the radio. 5G is an end-to-end service-based architecture, and we looked at the disaggregation of various network elements into functions, and that defines what the service-based architecture is. If you take an HLR where the subscriber data resides, that HLR now is becoming a big domain, the data management domain that itself has been broken up into several network functions. If you don't have those network functions, we won't be able to deliver all the 5G use cases we have been bragging about for the past 10 years or so. Let me give you an example. For example, we think about having a phone call on voice over LTE. For that, you need a specific core, IMS. So we human beings are making phone calls on VoLTE using that particular core. Now you have connected cars. Where do you put these connected cars? The data of those cars have to be somewhere. It is in a separate core. This is what we call dedicated core, D-core, as it is known at 3GPP. So think about it. We are deploying a core for each use case. This is the 4G world. In 5G, we want to have one core with unique network functions to handle each use case. So this is why it is so important to have the real 5G core deployed in your network so that you are ready to rock and roll with those fancy use cases, which potentially will bring money. That's the hope.
What is your view of private 5G networks? So many players really believe that it's going to be a huge opportunity for them. But private networks are not as simple and straightforward as many people think they should be. And even the end users don't really understand what is needed and how much will it cost. So what's your view on private networks?
Yeah, there is a lot of buzz and hype around private 5G network. We had that buzz as well with private LTE networks. You go to the next G, 5G. What I'm hearing from service providers dealing with this on a daily basis, it's that 5G is just one more tool that they are adding to their toolbox. Let's put it this way, the private wireless network bucket or toolbox. LTE is not going away. Wi-Fi is not going away. Now you have Wi-Fi 6 with great performances. So the bottom line is, depending on the situation that needs to be addressed by the service provider or by somebody else, you have to select the right tool in this wireless toolbox to address that situation with the best price to performance ratio. 5G won't always make the cut. We'll see that moving forward. There is a ramp up. Again, we are at the beginning, there is a lot of excitement, but we also see private LTE networks growing very fast. We are also seeing Wi-Fi and non-cellular technologies, actually. So it's a big bucket with many tools, which is great for whoever is in charge of providing a service, a private wireless service to a particular enterprise or government, whatever.
What is your view on the success of Open RAN?
That's another, very interesting topic, isn't it? Everybody's talking about Open RAN, right? But the question, rebounding on that question, how do you define success? So there are different aspects of defining that success. On the one hand, if the goal, well, one of the goals was to create an ecosystem, a new ecosystem. Here we are. We have a vast ecosystems, and we are not done yet. And we also have now the cloud providers getting into the Open RAN arena. So that's one aspect of success. But look at the marketplace. Where are we? We are 3 years into this Open RAN debate, and Rakuten Mobile in Japan, at the end of the day, remains the world's largest Open RAN footprint, right? Now we have Dish in the US and 1&1 Drillisch in Germany that are coming on board with Open RAN networks. But the problem is we need more than that to make a market, a sustainable market, and call it a success. Don't get me wrong, what Rakuten is doing is exceptional, taking the big plunge with all the criticism, like this, with a revolutionary, untested, immature architecture in one of the most demanding mobile market in the world is spectacular. Congratulations to Rakuten Mobile for pulling that off, right? But now we need tier one service providers to come on board and drive volumes to make eventually a significant dent in the traditional RAN market. And we are far away from that. We are seeing a lot of stuff in the news, lots of fake, misleading news about the size of that market. Potentially, make no mistake, it's going to take a while, still a while, actually, for tier ones, because at the end of the day, these are the people with big money building big networks. And unless you have them on board, you're not going to make a big market. And it takes a while to do the testing. There are still aspects of Open RAN that remain without a standard. For example, think about, it's nice to disaggregate everything, but you create new interfaces. You have to standardize these interfaces. Top of it, you actually have to secure these interfaces. Security is a big issue worldwide. And that is taking time. So we just don't see the market taking off in a significant way to potentially reach a mass scale until 2025. So in the meantime, the message to the ecosystem is hang in there because the ride is going to be very interesting until the market really takes off.
Do you think it's too early to talk about 6G?
No, because typically it takes 10 years from the concept of thinking of a new G, getting all the ideas and vet the ideas to make sure that all the things that were thought about can be put together and create the new generation. So it takes 10 years between the first thoughts to first commercial rollouts. So if you look at where we are in 5G, LTE, the first network with LTE network was deployed in December 2009 in Sweden, right? It's really in 2010 that the Koreans started deploying LTE, and then the US, Japan. We are in 2022. We started to see the first rollouts of 5G in 2019. So it's pretty much in the ballpark. And that means starting 6G discussion now means we'll see the first 6G commercial networks somewhere in 2028. Now, what I'd like to mention is you hear about it because now it's so politicized because of that 5G issue related to Huawei. I mean, 5G now is politicized as well, and therefore 6G is. So there is a world race between nations of getting first into 6G, and that's why you hear so much about it, because in the past it was behind closed doors and really handled by standard bodies like 3GPP, ETSI, ITU basically manages all the definitions and so on, and put its final stamp on what it is. So yeah, I mean, that's the reason why we hear so much about 6G. It has never been that way before.
Finally, you mentioned to me that you are going to MWC Barcelona 2022. What are you looking forward to, and what are you expecting to see?
First off, it's going to be a bizarre MWC as it was in 2021, because I went there, but and there were not that many people. But we learned a big deal with meetings behind closed doors about Open Run, stuff that we cannot say in the public domain. I just talked about Open Run a few minutes ago, but there are real issues. I mean, the ecosystem looks pretty when you look at the PowerPoint presentation, but in the real life, it can be nasty. So that's why I like to go to Mobile Congress, because you have a big concentration of all the players, and then you can be behind closed doors and tackle the stuff and talk about the reality of the situation with nasty information, anecdotal information about what it is, to try to get business in your own direction. So Open Run is again going to be a major topic, even more so with the automation part that is involving cloud players. So now we have the big boys wrecking, the Open Run train by bringing RIC, automation, radio access network intelligent controller. So expect to see a lot around that, because we at LightCounting expect to see the first commercial deployments of the RIC this year. You'll see announcements in terms of optimization, cellular network optimization, for example, around spectrum optimization, because it's nice to spend big money on spectrum, but Claude Shannon found, the limit that there is only that much bit per second per each unit of hertz that you can transmit, and therefore, you can still, you'll go find new spectrum, buy it. It's expensive, but at the end of the day, on the other side, you need to do something in your network. So I expect, some interesting developments around spectrum. The next thing is 5G core service-based architecture, and that goes back to some extent to the cloud players. They'll talk about RAN automation, but they'll They'll also talk about core networks, as they have been doing since 2020, as a matter of fact. And what else? We'll see a lot of private wireless network things. And also, lastly, 5G use cases, at least from the service providers that will show up. Telefonica will be there, Orange will be there. For example, Deutsche Telekom will be there. So I recommend to spend some time at their booth, because they are doing very interesting things in when it comes to 5G use cases. But some other service providers won't be there. They'll participate virtually, like NTT Docomo. NTT Docomo typically has very interesting stuff to show at their booth. So that's sad to not see them. That's pretty much my focus for MWC 2022, and I hope to see many of you, because LightCounting will be there the whole time. We arrive Friday, before actually the start, because there is already a lot of things happening during the weekend. So see you there, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for speaking to us, and I look forward to seeing you at MWC 2022. Goodbye.
Hi everyone, and nos vemos pronto en Barcelona.